Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I want to talk about my brief meeting of Steven Seagal. Now, as a person who's lived 40 years basically, or almost all of my life in the Los Angeles area, and this was at a time when a lot of people were coming up. Chuck Norris was coming up. Bruce Lee was pretty much before my time. And of course, it was back then, access to different people, even celebrities, was much easier. And they went to common restaurants in areas like Beverly Hills, and you would see them sitting at tables. This all changed, of course. But this was also a time in the 70s after Kung Fu that there was really a martial arts craze. And this is when martial arts started to pick up pretty much in the 70s, middle to late 70s, when I was in high school as well. And Chuck Norris had studios, and many other people. I'm trying to think if there. Bruce Lee never really taught lessons to the public, as far as I know. He taught lessons to people for a lot of money, and rightfully so, obviously. But certainly Chuck Norris had studios all over the place, and I don't remember anywhere else. Of course, Ed Parker was everywhere in his studios, which I guess are still going on. So it wasn't like these things were unusual. And of course, Steven Seagal. And of course, I was looking for different martial arts systems. I was trying to find something different. And I think at that time, the only different martial arts there were. Now, there were people having Kempo, I remember going into, and of course, Taekwondo is very common everywhere. And even Kung Fu. Kung Fu you could find being taught, and I don't know how many were Kung Fu people really, but after the TV series, there seemed to have been a lot of Kung Fu people. I went to all these studios looking for something a little different. And of course, they were just nothing more than goofball military training. You stand there, they scream at you, you do this. Oh, how boring. I wasn't looking for that. Actually, I was trying to find something that blended more spiritual, like it really happens, because the Shaolin monasteries and everything else in China and Kung Fu in China is taught like you're going in the military. And of course, being China, they have 5,000 students that go to a ground someplace, and they all sit there at 5 o'clock in the morning. The same old kind of nonsense of military thing, which bored me to tears. I had no interest in that, of doing that. If I wanted to do that kind of nonsense, I would have went into the military. So I went and talked to all these people, and they're nothing but kickers and punchers. I wasn't impressed by it. I sat in on several Kung Fu studios things, and they're just bending themselves like pretzels. I didn't find that. I don't want to try and look like a praying mantis. I think that's ridiculous. So all that animal styles that, of course, the Chinese are famous for, I didn't find anything interesting. I've read books about actual training in China and everything else, and there's absolutely virtually nothing spiritually taught to you. So, I wanted a blend. I did want to learn how to use techniques and fight, but I wanted that to be based in something and talk about energy and everything else. Good luck. And of course, this is in Humpty Dumpty land of Los Angeles, Hollywood, the land of the fruits and the nuts, where all the hippy dippies, none of it was there. That's nonsense. You're not going to find that anywhere. I'm not sure anybody teaches that, period. This came many, many years later, and as we now have the internal arts and understanding it, while Kung Fu was very mystical and philosophy-based, good luck finding that. And I'm not sure that's even taught in Kung Fu schools, period. That's a blending, a magnificent writing and production that series was. Just fantastically well put together by non-Asians, which is so true, because there's no style from the Chinese. Very primitive. You go to a Chinese acupuncturist, he'll have an old beat-up office with old crappy chairs, and they'll have, petitions put up around. This is very typical of Chinese, where they do things very primitively and very backwards. You're not going to find a nice, sophisticated office and doing things in what is considered a professional fashion. You don't do that outside of the Western cultures in particular. So you're not going to find that. So the point is that I also heard about Aikido, and I said, well, Aikido is kind of interesting, because it's not the same kind of punching and kicking you get from everything else. It also is not twisting yourself up like a pretzel to look like an insect. So the whole idea is that I heard about this and the new studio that was opening up there, the Aikido studio. And it was very foreign back then. And of course, it was in West Hollywood, close to some movie studios, which is exactly what Seagal wanted. And of course, it did work out. He ended up training, and I'm not sure how he went about it. And remember, I don't know him. I went and talked to him for, I don't know, 5 minutes. At his studio in West Hollywood. And of course, he attracted, which he wanted to do. And I'm not sure how he do it, but remember, this shows you what he was planning and what he was doing. Now, to give you a little background on Steven Seagal, he's a Jewish guy with an Irish mother. And that's the other thing. He wants to say Seagal when it's Seagal. And the whole idea is that that's his background, from a low middle class background. And an Irish mother, which I'm assuming where his bigger genes come. He's an impressive man to look at. He's about 6'4". Of course, back then he was a skinny little guy. Now he's, and I'm assuming this is done even deliberately to a point. And, Seagal is a strange person in general. And he's been targeted to be disgraced, and we'll get into that in a different video. A few people like Seagal, and this has been done deliberately. And he's been deliberately because he came out against the military-industrial complex, regardless of what you like about it. He's been set up by women. He's been set up. This is the common things that happen. You know anybody that isn't been set up by women? Assange, Donald Trump. We can go on and on. It's called the honeypot. And this is the reality that is out there. But I'll get into that in a different. Now, he doesn't have a likable personality, mostly because he's not very bright. He doesn't speak well. He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know how to handle himself, and he comes off horribly. And that is him as a personality. This has been added to by a bunch of lies about him, plain and simple, like they lie about Donald Trump, like they lie about Assange, like they lie about everybody, like they lie about me. So is this unusual? If you're not part of their corrupt garbage, you're going to get trashed upon. Now, Seagal did this image deliberately. He doesn't know what to talk about, so it has to be, I'm the tough badass and everybody else is a jerk. Now, the point is that all you have to do is look on YouTube. It's worked. He's everywhere. Martial artists, the little cruds they are, the bottom feeders, the deviates, and violent maniac cowards they are, of course, can't wait to criticize him when they haven't. They say that his system isn't any good. But let's get back to Aikido there. Now, so Aikido was very, very new. You couldn't find anybody teaching. I believe there was a couple of places ran by Japanese people in the little Tokyo area of Japan, of Los Angeles. And of course, you go to these people, we don't speak no English. So the whole idea is that, they're operating in America, and I'm not sure they even want to teach whiteys. So the whole idea is that this is something that is very common. If you're on the whole idea is these Orientals and people in general that come over don't learn the language, and this is a serious problem. So no matter where you go, that's it. And these people can be here. I've run into this with all the Chi masters. And we're not talking about 1960 here. We're talking about the 90s and 2000. None of these people could communicate properly. So if you want to try and get anything out of that, if you want to pay them for a service, that's okay. But if you think you're going to get any kind of training from these people who they can't even speak the language, well, good luck. Get a book, get a partner, get some videos, and you're going to get much more out of it. Everybody wants to think that there's somebody they have to go to and teach them. This is a big error. And also, it's an error because of the fact is you need to take control of your life and, do something yourself instead of depending on these false bottom feeders that are martial artists. So the whole idea is that this is a reality. Now, so finding anybody who could teach Aikido and, of course, could speak the English is a real serious problem. So he was one of them, and at that time, he was not known. I just went there because it was Aikido. I didn't know that he was there because he was nobody then. He had just started this. He was getting the Hollywood people in there, etc. So I went to the studio. I wanted to see what it was all about. I wanted to see a class, if he had it, etc., that went with all that stuff. And I did speak to him, and I said, well, I find this an interesting form. And I think it's much more internal based and philosophical based. And that's what I'm looking for. And he said, man, dude, you're the only guy that's ever come in here who's asked for something of a spiritual nature. Most people just want to figure out how to punch and kick. So that was his thing. And I said, yeah, well, that's what I'm looking for. He says, well, that's very complicated and that's a long term and you have to spend years studying to get into all those things. So I said, that goes way past after you've done all your other work before we get into those things. But he was open. Nobody else really said that. And this was a common problem with any kind of martial arts, because these people have problems. And again, it was a problem because of the fact that we really, people do not teach this in martial arts class. And they certainly don't, the Asians are not going to teach any of that to the Westerners who they feel are too stupid to learn it and have no interest in. Probably, of course, that's true to a large degree of what is going on in the bigger picture. But of course, that was my extent of contact with him. I don't know if he's a good guy or bad guy. How do you know any of that stuff? You have to work with them. I don't know if he's a good teacher or not. He certainly was friendly at that particular time, and of course wanting students and to make money and survive. But that was not his goal. He opened up a studio so that he was close to these particular areas, and that's of course exactly what he'd done, and that's how he got into the studios. And of course, Aikido is unique because it may appeal to a lot of people because it's kind of, and it's not really true, people don't give Aikido as much credit as it deserves, it's kind of less violent in terms of the fact you're using people's weights against them, you're throwing them, etc. And it's supposed to be less violence. That's what the founder of Aikido was all about. So it would become less aggressive. But don't think in any way that all these people don't have ways to kill you. All martial artists, no matter what the system is, and they're not going to teach you that. They're not going to teach you the deadly stuff that is with it. That's their stuff. That's also the reality of a master. And he's not going to give it to students off the street. And look, I'm going to show you how to hurt people to save your life. You're not going to get that from anybody. You're not going to get that with any type of really fighting systems, weapon systems, etc. They're going to teach you the gobbledygook that they give to the masses. That's how the world is, and so forth. So after that, and of course, years later, I then remember seeing him getting his movie breaks and remember this brief encounter with him. But again, it's just a brief encounter. I think that Steven Seagal is one of the most wrongfully abused people out there. I think he's much deeper and more philosophical than almost any other martial arts teacher out there. Bruce Lee played the game of the wise Chinese philosopher when he really wasn't. So he was mostly into making money and being a movie star. And that was his entire life, coming up in an acting family. And in no way do I want to say to put him down in terms of Bruce Lee not being a magnificent martial artist. But the bottom line is that a lot of that was a game. And this guy used to drive Cadillacs and wear fur coats like he was a pimp, and made sure he did everything possible to get into the society where he wanted to make a lot of money. And so let's understand that, and that's where everybody comes from. So the bottom line is that Steven Seagal has been wrongly accused of a lot of things, including being choked out by Gene LaBelle. This is a complete and total fraud. And of course, LaBelle, who has died recently, loved to play that game because it got him. I don't know if he thought it was funny or not, but it's not funny when you're a martial artist, because what they're trying to say is you're just a little sissy boy, a wimp, and it destroys your whole image. So it's not funny. But nobody likes Seagal because of the image he's decided to get out there. As I said, he has a real bad personality. And when you see him on talk shows and stuff, you can see he has nothing to say. So he wants to make goofy statements. So this is not a mental genius either. But the point is he's a very qualified martial artist in Aikido. He's learned other systems, and he is very proficient with firearms of all types, etc. And his life is quite interesting. People don't know that He was threatened by the mafia, and to this day makes sure that he carries weapons everywhere because they got a hit out on him. So there's all sorts of things going on that you don't know about. And this fake incident with Jean LaBelle was just that. It never happened, and this is all urban legend to disgrace this guy, mostly because he came out against the military-industrial complex. So keep that in mind and watch my next upcoming video where I talk about what happens. No other people did that. You're not going to get that pussy Chuck Norris who wants to pray on his knees to Jesus talking against the system. He was a George Bush supporter, and he supports the rot and filth, like all Christians do, of the stinking corrupt system. And they all do that. Bruce Lee didn't come out. Bruce Lee was a drug addict on top of everything else, taking copious quantities of things and taking his sweat glands out so he could look more pretty on the screen to make those goofball, crappy Chinese movies. Let's get that clear. And we can talk about all the other people in martial arts, and I can't think of a single one of them that has done anything. They didn't put it in their movies. They didn't take that risk. Steven Seagal did. And nobody gives him credit for this. And because of this, they went after him. And he's found people that are better, like the Russians who saved the world in 3 times to bring all that out. So all of that is out there that no one else has done. And of course now, rightfully so, he's left the United States because of the lies and deception out there that people like to put him down unjustifiably. Now, he certainly ain't a charmer, but I don't believe any of these sexual charges. I don't believe of any of these things. But, you know, everybody's got their little problems. But the bottom line is he, unlike other people like Buddha Boy Richard Gere, who's Buddha down to the crotch, but below the crotch, he's 100% little baby. So the whole idea is that he married models. Steven Seagal ultimately married a Mongolian woman and is a Buddhist of whatever level, and I'm not a big fan of Buddhism, but these are true. Nobody else is. None of these other people are. So whoever you want to note, and of course you've got Von Damme, who's who states in his all of his policies that he's a devout Catholic, typical French Belgianite guy, and of course he's from the country that has the worst beer on the planet, Belgium. Vomit tastes better. So the whole idea is that this is the reality out there, and he's the only one that's really done it. Bruce Lee wanted to talk philosophies, but really was just a very low moral person in everything he did. Not only drug tapers, he was screwing around. He did all the things that everybody does, and there are notes of how much. I'm sure he took a lot of dope, and he smoked a lot of pot and everything else. There's nothing wrong with that. And of course, he had health problems on top of it. That encountered things. So, and we really don't know what's happening. But they're all like that. Nobody is out there doing anything of any great extent as martial artists that I'm aware of. Certainly none of the Americans. From what I understand, now I forget his name, who's one of the most famous Chinese guys. He's given a lot of money to charities and everything else. And of course, he's been hunted by the triads and everything else. Bruce Lee's, what is his name now? But there aren't these martial arts people doing anything. And it's as simple as that. No matter who you get involved with, you're not doing it. So the fact that of the odd aggressive personality that Steven Seagal has deliberately done for himself, particularly since he doesn't seem to have much to say or much of a personality, has caused him more trouble than not. But if you want publicity, he's everywhere. So as the old saying goes, there is no bad publicity as long as talk about me all you want, just spell my name right, as the old joke goes. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And as I said, watch for my upcoming video on Seagal and really what's going on.